So hi everybody, I'm Kathy Vaness from the Golden Door. Thank you so much for being with me tonight and sit and chat with Edie Weiner. Weiner, I got this right, Weiner.
I would prefer this the other way.
I know, we practice that too, Edie Weiner. And she is probably, someone I hope I know for a very long time. She's one of my most favorite jobs in the world. She is a futurist. She gets to see, you know, all these things we're marching forward that we might feel in our guts. She's really seeing them even bigger than we are. It's a talent. 1% of the world has the ability to actually understand where we're all heading at certain times of the year. Remember the stories of the couch potatoes and the clothing that would be thrown away? Those were giant mega trends that actually have come and kind of gone on in their own little ways.
They were fads.
They were fads. I come from fashion, so those were our lives. Edie Weiner is the president and CEO of Future Hunters, one of the world's leading futurist consulting firms, and is one of the world's top futurists. She has served over 400 clients, identifying opportunities in the areas of marketing, product development, investment, strategic planning, human resources, and public affairs. Clients have ranged from national governments to the Fortune 500. Edie has keynoted hundreds of conferences, including the World Economic Forum in Davos and TEDx. She has guest lectured, I think she's here with us tonight. Isn't that exciting? She has guest lectured at various prestigious institutions, including Harvard, Wharton, U.S. Army War College, U.S. Naval War College, among others. At 29 years old, she became the youngest outside woman ever to be elected to a corporate board. Her many articles have appeared in publications like the Harvard Business Review, The Futurist, the Wall Street Journal. She wrote 4 books, including her latest, Future Think, which was a global bestseller. Translated into many languages, she's keynoted over 300 conferences. So tonight's interview is going to be a bit different. We normally have so many questions because I know Edie and I've seen her speak many times and seen much of her work. She has so much to tell us. I'm going to keep this down to only a few questions because I know no matter what question I football to her, she's going to have some amazing answer that we're going to all want to hear.
And I get the time back from this very long introduction.
That's right. She's going to get a tiny bit of time back for this fabulously brilliant introduction of you to our wonderful audience. So I'm going to start with a simple question. What are some of the key world trends that you believe would be the top 3 that would be influencing our lives?
The top 3, it's tough for me to talk about them as separate trends because 2 of them are really major transformations that we're going through. And one of those transformations leads us to 3 things that are changing our whole civilization. So if I can preface it and then get to those 3,
please.
I'll give those to you. The first major transformation that we're going through is a global economic transformation, which economists wrongly called a recession when it started to happen back in 2007-8 with the collapse of the financial house of cards that were the high-risk mortgage instruments. Basically, we knew in 1992 that in the year 2005 to 7, we were going to see major layoffs everywhere around the world. And so that time frame, we hit it almost on the year, but that coincided with the financial collapse, and then all of those layoffs around the world were blamed on that and a recession when it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the fact that we were going through a kind of global transformation that we had been through before in modern history several times, when we went from the agricultural era to the industrial, from the industrial to the post-industrial, from the post-industrial to what we called in '92 the immotile to what we now call the metaspace. So the one thing that they all have in common, and if I were to talk about one really important trend that is always out there, it's the fact that when you have the confluence of disruptive technologies coming together that create efficiencies in the economy, you change everything. Because basically what efficiencies mean is that you don't need human labor to do that same work. So the first thing we understand about these transformations is that technology causes them. It caused the agricultural, the industrial, the post-industrial, what I call the immotile, and now the metaspace. The second thing we need to understand is that because of these technologies, Everything that you were able to make money on in the prior economy has become commoditized. It becomes cheaper and more available. So everybody scrambles to figure out, okay, now you can't make money on what you used to make money on. So where are you going to make money? So now the jobs aren't there. The money can't be made there. So you have to think about what the next level of value proposition is going to be. And the third thing, and maybe most important about this, is something we call templosion, which is the implosion of time, the real story of change. And if I were to talk about one overriding trend, it would be the speed of change. Because we were in the agricultural era for thousands of years, in the industrial for 200, in the post-industrial for 45. And that's why in '92, we figured we were lucky if we got 15 years out of the next economy, which took us to 2007, before we saw major layoffs everywhere around the world. So we hit it pretty close to the year in '92.
So let me ask you two things. One, and I think it's very brilliant what you're saying, why wasn't more notice made of the fact that maybe it wasn't just a collapse of one thing? Couldn't we have addressed it better? If everybody would have just recognized what was going on,
I have come
the trauma
to truly
would have been
believe
better.
that economics has become a substitute for thinking.
Right? Wouldn't people reacted better, and plans would have been better, and jobs would have been better?
How could you call this a recession when it had nothing to do with the things that cause a recession, number one? Then you saw them all scrambling around talking about a jobless recovery, which was what?
Yeah.
And then they talked about a double dip recession, which was what? I mean, they were trying to get everything to fit their models. And it wasn't fitting, and they weren't willing to look elsewhere for what was going on.
Why do you feel?
You know,
There's just so much
Kathy, I
news.
should have won the Nobel Prize.
I know, exactly.
For
There's just so much. There's just so much news. Like I hear something, like even something really minute that I happen to be sitting in an event, and I'll hear something happen and go, "But that is not exactly what's happening here. I'm physically here. That is not what's happening." But nobody really wants to kind of.
It's so frustrating.
Why?
I don't know, but it's how I make money.
I know.
Because I get clients because they don't understand what these other people are talking about.
So I want to go back a second. I want to go back because we only have so much time. I want to make sure I keep moving. You have so much to say. You just said something really, I love this word, templosion.
Yeah.
I'm going to read three things that you, of course, know. I want you to expand on the three again. Templosion, we know that life is in lightning speed. I mean, clearly that's pretty, we in business can see it like unbelievable. But I also love your other self-fulfilling prophecies and educated incapacities. I do my homework too. I love those three. Oh my gosh, I'm going to use them. Imagine, let's have our next dinner. And we could say, I'd like to talk about templosion and educated incapacity.
That's why one of the women told me yesterday, you'd be a great person to have wine with. I said, no, I'm the worst.
I love that. And then I could just throw in self-fulfilling prophecies at the very end.
So
these are three very powerful things, though.
Educated incapacity is knowing so much about what you know that you can't see the future for it differently. And that affects every business. Mm-hmm. It's not a condemnation of any one business or profession, but why we wouldn't go to those businesses, like we wouldn't go to retailers to find out about the future of retail. We just had this discussion before. You wouldn't go to the spa industry to find out about the future of spa.
Actually, I don't know.
So basically, although there are some far-sighted people, I mean, Susie's pretty far-sighted. Sure. But so the point is that we all suffer from this, and we can't even see today, let alone the future. If I were to ask you all in this room right now to picture in your mind's eye, well, let's start with something we all know. Picture nutrition in your mind's eye, all of you, okay? What's the first thing that comes into focus? What are you seeing? Foods, like carrots, food, food. Okay, but you already know that most of the food that's available today is not nutritious. So you're picturing food instead of nutrition. How many of you actually pictured the sun? The sun is the single most important source of nutrition. And it is actually the spectrum, the light spectrum, that is the source of your nutrition. But because you can't consume those different nanometer parts of the spectrum directly from the sun, you can only get it in food, which is why you hear eat the rainbow. Because there are different nutritional factors in every part of the light spectrum. But you can, as humans, we can only access that through food. So, if anybody says nutrition, you should be picturing the sun, not food. If I asked you to picture in your mind's eye sources of energy, Sources of energy, what would you be picturing? The sun, solar, water, hydro, geothermal, fossil fuels, and okay. The fact of the matter is that there is no solid matter anywhere in the universe. When it comes down to the quantum level, everything is energy. Everything is energy. You should be able to power your cell phone using your heartbeat.
Yeah, that's right.
You should be able to walk through Grand Central Station, and the floor of Grand Central Station should be able to take the vibrations of your footsteps and light all of Grand Central Station. Everything is energy. And we're going to be moving into a world where we begin to convert that knowledge in different ways into energy. If I ask you to picture in your mind's eye currency, what are you picturing? You might be picturing money or plastic, and some people think they're so ahead of the game that they can picture Bitcoin, which is one form of cryptocurrency, which is one form of virtual currency, which is even bigger than that. Are you picturing tweets? Because tweets have become a form of currency. Are you picturing barter? Because that's very big in many places in the world. And are you picturing nothing? Nothing, because there is just currency in the ether that is part of the trade that is going on now. The young people who are under the age of 17, if you ask them what Fort Knox is, they would think it's a military installation. They never lived in a time, ever, when the currency they used was really, truly backed up by gold. It's all monopoly money. Young people graduate college from anywhere from $25,000 to several $100,000 in debt before they own an asset. So money to them is like a very different thing. It's a completely different thing. So we don't even see today, let alone where we're heading, and that's educated incapacity.
I love that. So in other words, is it almost sort of the inability, because you're so closed-minded of where you are in space,
what you've been taught,
to think in a free form is almost impossible.
You were about to say out of the box.
Yeah, but I didn't.
I know. Because you know I hate that.
Exactly. That was quick.
I hate that. Because we're told don't think out of the box when the fact of the matter is that everything we need to see is right there in the box, and we're just not looking at it. Yeah. We're just not looking at it.
So I'm going to add another one to that. What about education and healthcare? How do you see that in the ethos?
I don't know what healthcare really means at this point, because we've co-opted a lot of words: wellness, medicine, health. We started embarking on a road several years back that we called Swellness, and we created something called the Swellness movement. We started looking at everything from humor to climate. There's actually we went out to Colorado, and there's actually a department at the University of Boulder in psychology that teaches humor. Everything affects your well-being. Everything. So how can you think about health education when, I mean, one of the points I made yesterday is that we were taught that we have 5 senses. 5 senses. And then we come to think, well, maybe there's a 6th sense. But what about the sense of balance, the sense of height, the sense of speed, the sense of direction? Yeah. When we have so many senses, and how we are healthy at any one time depends on a million things: genetics, epigenetics, our sensory perception, our sense of humor, the way the climate is performing outside. How do you do health education when all of life is involved in some way
and
with
everybody
health?
is uniquely different?
Totally uniquely different.
Not even a tiny bit, just everybody uniquely.
No two
There's
people
no
have
one
the same
answer.
brain, no two people have, I mean, it's just, so to me, the whole idea of health education that doesn't begin prenatally in your life, where you're not like born with it, raised with it, where it's not infused in every class you ever take. I mean, you know, we took history, and what we were tested on were the names of guys and the dates they fought their wars. That's pretty much, not why they really fought the war, not really looking beneath it, but the names of guys and why they fought the wars. So now the History Channel is a little more entertaining because we're not tested on it. We can just watch it and enjoy it and figure it out. But the fact is that, you know, in books like Guns, Germs, and Steel, you realize that health itself is a part of why countries go to war. Yeah. Everything is involved in it. So to me, health education is to just so artificially set something aside that should be integrated into every single thing that you study.
One of the things we've talked a lot about here at Golden Door is that power of one. The concept that wellness and health today is homogenized. And it's giant sweeping answers of one solution that's supposed to cover the masses.
Well, this is going to get really funny because
it doesn't actually work.
The second major transformation, because I said there were two.
Yeah.
The first is this global economic transformation, but remember, I said templosion. Mm-hmm. We're getting up against the point where there's no time left for another one of those.
Right.
And so what's happening now is that we are at the crux of what I call civilization alpha. This is the first time in human history as we know it, through all the past civilizations, and I'll go through them real quickly for you, that for the very first time we can do three things. So when you ask me what are the three trends, this is another threesome. We can leave this planet, we can destroy this planet, and we can consciously select the many futures of our own evolution. We can design the future, the many futures of our species. Yeah. So one of the things when you say the future of our health or our well-being, who are we? The ways that we are going between synthetic biology and genetic engineering and the hybridization of what is human, what is not human, what is living, what is not living, we are going off into many directions. The human species will not be one thing in the future. There will be many. So I can't talk about humans, I can only talk about humanity. Interesting. And humanity will be many different things in the future. Artificial intelligence, robotic sensors, all of these.
I just saw in a hotel, I can't believe this, I just saw it today, I actually wanted to try it out, I didn't have time. This machine, about this size, and it is the machine to get you your towels and your toothpaste and your toilet paper from your room.
Did it have a name?
Yes, they called it See Something.
Yep.
And you dial See Something directly into this machine and you tell it what you need and it runs and goes and gets it.
It also knows how to charge itself.
It's amazing. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Well, in Japan, they're doing them, some of them are smaller size, but they're doing them more human-like because Japan has a unique position in the world and has since World War II. Because it lost World War II, its guys didn't come back happy and ready to make families the way our guys did. We had a baby boom following that. We made a lot of babies for 17 years. They had a baby bust, but they were also bombed out. So they were able to build everything from scratch and knew that their future couldn't depend on the productivity of people because they weren't going to have them. So they automated, and then they competed with us tremendously in automation. We had to absorb our baby boom, 77 million over 17 years, into our economy and make jobs. They didn't have any people, they could automate everything. So we were getting killed with automation. Now they are the oldest society in the world. And they still don't have the people they're going to need to take care of their older generations. So so now robotics, they have to turn to that as caregivers and as service providers. So basically, they're at the leading edge of that. And a lot of their robotics, their humanoids, are starting to scratch the surface of passing the Turing test, which means that you can trick a human for some period of time into believing that this is actually another human.
Oh my gosh.
So,
wow.
So they're really, so you're going to see in Japan, I mean, they're using these in hotels, they're using these in their amusement parks, they're using these behind their sales counters. But that's one form. Then you're going to see holograms used, the holographic images. I mean, we are going off, templosion is happening. The directions that technology, one of the things we talk about is bang fuel. BAANGFUEL. And we always say, don't bother Googling it with one A because you're going to wind up at a porn site. But we came up with bang fuel because I firmly believe that it is the combination and recombination of bits, atoms, antimatter, neurons, genes, frequencies and vibrations, which you're going to hear a lot more about, and infra and ultraspectral energy / light. The combinations and recombinations of those things are going to create materials we have never known, going to create energy that we have, sources that we have never known, going to create living / non-living things that we have never known. It's opening up. I mean, imagine in your mind a world in which opposites don't work. Opposites don't work. So in other words, something can be light as a feather and strong as steel.
Wow.
Imagine a world where you can't have terrestrial and non-terrestrial because everything down here is being operated by everything up there. By the way, if I am worried about anything in terms of North Korea launching anything, it has nothing to do with a nuclear missile hitting us. It has to do with them exploding it somewhere up there. Because that EMP, that electromagnetic pulsation, will knock out everything. Our communications, our financial systems, our energy systems, our communications, everything. So, and we often talk about NBC, which is nuclear, biological, and chemical threats, and you don't see electro-EMP in there, and it should be. It should be right there with the other three.
One of the predictions you've talked about is creating, this last piece is going to be very interesting, is creating from the molecular level on up.
Yeah, that's molecular self-assembly.
Right, and there's something new called 3D printing where you can 3D print or you can actually print food.
Okay, so 3D printing is not new. Yes. It's been around for a long time. Food has been 3D. In fact, NASA has been talking about 3D printing pizzas that have 30-year, that you can use the ingredients for 30 years because we're now having to think about how to provide food in space because we're going to have thousands of people within the next 10 to 15 years. There were 200,000 volunteers, by the way, already on Elon Musk's list for the 2025 first shot to the Mars.
And we interviewed here a company called Deep Space Mining.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. So a good friend of mine is the intellectual property lawyer for that.
Ziggy.
There's also There's also
oh my gosh,
Moon Express.
A hotel on an asteroid.
Yeah.
Their vision.
Exploitation
and
exploration and exploitation. Very big asteroids. The moon is going to be our 8th continent.
Is this amazing? What we learn here?
This is all happening very,
it's
very
really
quickly.
Happening. I know. I interviewed. I mean, they've got people who go to work every day.
No, they're talking about how to do that. And one of her companies, Moon Express, got the first regulation cleared for them to be able to privately take off and land on the moon. And that's
so what's 4D?
So 4D.
I love that. I'm going to learn something today.
Okay, so everything is already being able to be printed in 3D.
Right. What's 4D?
4D, the variable is time, so that whatever you print later can become something else depending upon what you do. So for example, if I wanted, I could print something that looks like this and then send it up into space, add water to it, and it will become part of a space station. Or I can print something in origami form, fold it over, as you would origami in paper, send it out into a military arena, and then it can unfold into a hospital tent. So the issue that I have there is that we are totally unprepared in several ways for this. First, whatever you pack in your purse or your luggage and take on a plane, who's going to know what that really is or what that will really become? How do we screen for anything that is not allowed to be exported or not allowed to, or is too dangerous or whatever? That's number one, security screening. We don't even know what we're looking at with 4D printing. Number two, we subsidize our shipping industry, don't subsidize it, but basically our shipping industry is based on size and weight. When you take size and weight out, how is the shipping industry going to survive? It's still going to have to be there, but how is it going to survive? So we're not prepared for 95% of what's coming down the pike. And then I get asked all the time, what about the moral and ethical implications of all these things that we're doing? And so I want to make this very clear to you. We say those two words in the same breath. They are not the same thing. Morality, we cannot decide for anybody else. Morality is something that everybody must decide for themselves. And your morality and my morality may be completely different. If you take a look at, do you like what they do to young girls in Africa with genital mutilation? You may say that's immoral. No, it's very moral for them, immoral for us. So when you say whose morality is going to rule? If it's mine, fine, but if it's yours, nah. So morality, you really can't. But ethics is a situational set of principles that guides behavior for a profession or some area of operation. And very frequently, morality and ethics are in absolute contradiction to each other. For example, lawyers, their morality may make them totally despise the client that they're representing for what he or she did. It might have been a heinous act. It might have been something done to a child or whatever. The client may hate this. The lawyer may hate this. But the lawyer's ethics say that they must defend this person to the best of their ability. Doctors' morals, whatever they may be, they must be guided by the ethics of their profession, end of life, or anything else. Here's a case. You may think that child labor is immoral. If you travel to a developing country, that putting 12-year-olds and 11-year-olds to work in factories is immoral. And so basically, based on that, we have made it unethical. Our ethics say that it's an ethical violation if you use child labor. But morally, what is better? For that child to be working in a factory or to be foraging in garbage dumps for food or selling his or her body on the corner for money? So when we think about morality and we think about ethics, these are two different things. They're both very sticky and they're both way, way behind, and regulation behind with them in the speed with which everything is changing into the future.
This is exciting. Every time, I wish we could sit here all night long, but I know we have a door to knock to and mountains to climb. So I'm going to ask Edie for what we ask every one of our guests each time we interview. And that is for you to give our incredible guests, you've got this privilege of sitting here tonight and just be quiet, right? For a second as women and get to talk about real things that are going on in the world, that are happening right now. But for one moment, I want you to give to our guest a golden nugget. Every single week, what's the golden nugget? What's the wisdom that you could give with them, that they could take with them home to their own families? That would be your gift to them from us.
You cannot figure the world out for yourself, let alone your kids or anyone else. And I just go back to Yogi Berra. My one nugget is when you get to the fork in the road, take it. Yeah, exactly. The worst thing you can do is be paralyzed by everything that's going on. You cannot think that your children live in the same world as you do. They know the world better than you do. And I get people send me their kids they say, Edie, I just spent $250,000 to send my kid to college, and now she wants to manage a rock band. Now he wants to be a ski instructor in Aspen. And I always say, I know that pain, because I spent that kind of money, like 20 years ago for my son to take the great sabbatical to write the novel From Beer to Fraternity. And so I know that pain, but don't send your kid to me, because they're going to live to be 100 years old.
Yeah, easy. Absolutely.
100 years old.
Absolutely.
When we got out of school, we were in our early 20s and retirement was at 65. They're going to have to support themselves until they're 85 or 90. And in that time frame, 70 years,
yeah, it's a lot.
75 years, you want to be a ski instructor, better to do it in your 20s than in your 80s. Yeah. You want to manage a rock band, better to do it, in your 20s than in your, although I'm sure that Mick Jagger would have something else to say about that. But so when you get to the fork in the road, take it. You can only know in the future if you've made the wrong or right decision, and if it was the wrong decision, you're going to get to another fork in the road. And when you get to that fork in the road, take it. Just be grateful for your journey. Just be grateful for being here in the first place. You're going to make decisions that you think are wrong. You won't even know until you know they're wrong. But just live it. Live it, because it's a great gift to be here, whatever that journey is.